Welcome to Oops, I Adulted, the podcast for those who find joy in grocery store sales and grapple with the existential realization that you now make the same noises as your parents when standing up. We're here to remind you that nobody truly knows what they're doing. We're all just tall children with credit cards and back pain.
Welcome to Oops, I Adulted, the podcast where we explore life's subtle ironies. And today we're talking about something that happens to all of us, no matter how hard we fight it. Turning into our parents. This is the first in a series discussing how we slowly and unexpectedly turn into them, about the way we engage in our personal and work interactions, about navigating technology, health and sports, music and hobbies, and all the other fun stuff that suddenly pop out that make us think, hey, I'm sounding like my mom or dad. Oh yeah, you know that moment. You're watering your plants and suddenly realize you're lecturing them about growing better. Or maybe you catch yourself folding plastic or paper bags to save them just in case. According to research by Williamson Chen in 2021, approximately 65% of adults report recognizing at least 5 specific behaviors they've adopted from their parents, though most of us only notice these behaviors retrospectively rather than in the moment. Well, these parental habits don't announce themselves. There's no ceremony where you're officially handed the torch of aging behaviors. They creep silently, like stealthy software updates running in the background of your life. One day you're a carefree young adult, and the next you're inspecting your electric bill with the intensity of a forensic accountant and muttering about leaving lights on in empty rooms. We might even say, I swore I'd never become the parent who carries a massive bag filled with random emergency items, until one day you pull out a sewing kit, 3 types of pain relievers, or even a screwdriver from your bag to help a friend. Incidentally, we've become our mother's utility belt, or depending on your cash flow, probably Batman's or Iron Man's. Oh well. According to Wang and Santrock in 2023, behaviors demonstrated repeatedly throughout childhood become deeply ingrained through direct observational learning, reinforcement of similar behaviors, and even punishment or discouragement of alternative behaviors. Essentially, we've been programmed by decades of exposure. And this preparedness behavior is actually what Johnson and Martinez, back in 2022, would classify as an adaptive transmission, or preparing for contingencies as a survival skill that serves us well. It's actually weird and funny that the behaviors we mock the most seem to be the very ones we adopt first. It's like the universe has a particularly ironic sense of humor. Or as Chen and Bonanno in 2021 discovered, even when we consciously attempt to avoid our parents' patterns, they often emerge during stressful situations. For example, the technological gap between generations creates some especially entertaining inherited behaviors. Prensky and Rogers in 2019 discovered how technological adaptation varies across generations, finding that each generation typically masters the technology of their formative years, but struggles with rapid evolutions that occur as we age. I mean, my dad used to write down step-by-step instructions for programming the TV. I thought it was ridiculous, until I found myself creating a digital document with detailed instructions for setting up my smart home devices. Even my mom used to print out emergency phone numbers before any trip. I thought it was so unnecessary, until my phone died in an unfamiliar city last year, and then I would have given anything for one of those crumpled papers. It's fascinating how each generation is convinced they've mastered technology in ways their parents never could. I mean, boomers struggled with programming VCRs, Gen X with Wi-Fi routers, even millennials like me with smart home integration and the endless cycle of app updates. This was documented in 2022 by Livingston and Haddon, noting that technological confidence drops predictably when paradigm shifts occur, meaning from analog to digital, from wired to wireless, or even from screen-based to voice-activated. Now I actually find myself taking screenshots of everything important, just like how my dad used to clip newspaper articles he said he might need someday. In 2018, research by Grace on household behavior patterns show these information hoarding tendencies actually serve the same purpose across generations, just with different tools.
Hey there, responsible humans and pretenders alike. Taking a quick adulting break to remind you that growing up doesn't have to be all taxes and lower back pain. If you're enjoying today's adventures in grown-up land, hit the like, follow and subscribe buttons, or just send us a telepathic high five. We'll feel it. Your support helps us continue making adulting less terrifying for everyone. Plus, following us is meal prepping for your ears. Content ready whenever you need it. And now, back to pretending we understand life and its mysteries.
Now let's talk about the verbal time bombs our parents planted in our brains that eventually explode out of us, or also known as phrases we swore we'd never say. Because I'm the adult and I said so, that's why. Or money doesn't grow on trees. Or there's also, when you have your own place, you can make the rules. And there's also the most dismal one, like, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed. There's also a frugal version of that. There's a, are you trying to AC the whole neighborhood? Well, last week I told someone, you'll understand when you're older. Then a while later, I needed to sit down and contemplate my existence. It's like, when did I become the dispenser of patronizing wisdom? In 2016, Corner and Fitzpatrick found that family communication patterns significantly predict how children will communicate in their adult relationships. Their research shows that we don't just inherit what our parents say, but how they say it, including conflict resolution approaches and our conversational patterns. And the worst part is, these phrases actually make sense now. They were right about turning lights off to save electricity. They were also right about closing the door to keep the heater cold in. They were right about saving for a rainy day.
Isn't that amazing?
Well, of course it is. And as Fiza and Winter in 2019 explain, that these verbal routines serve as a shorthand for deeper values being transmitted, like resource conservation, respect for shared spaces, and financial prudence. So why does this happen? Is it genetics, environment, or some kind of parental curse designed to ensure that we eventually understand their pain? Well, there's actually some interesting science behind this inheritance of behaviors. Our brains contain what scientists call mirror neurons, specialized cells that fire both when we perform an action and when we observe someone else performing the same action. Rizzolatti and Craigiano in 2020 have extensively documented how these neurons facilitate behavioral learning through observation. Well, growing up with our parents means years of observing their behaviors, with our mirror neurons firing away and creating neural pathways that make those same behaviors feel natural to us later in life. Research by Siegel in 2021 on neural development demonstrates that the repeated exposure to parental behavioral patterns literally shapes our brain's architecture, creating default responses that require conscious efforts to override. There's also the simple fact that many of these habits exist for a reason. They actually work. Patterson and Reed research back in 2019 on environmental conditioning shows how shared environments shape behavioral similarities. Like checking tire pressure before a road trip might seem excessive, until it saves you from an actual blowout. And interestingly, these deeply encoded behaviors tend to surface when we're stressed or overwhelmed. In 2022, Davies and Martin found that emotional regulation strategies show strong parent-to-child transmission, especially under stress. When our mental bandwidth is stretched thin, we default to our most deeply ingrained programming, which often means channeling mom or dad's coping mechanisms. Now it makes sense, right? Now you know why you do what you do when you're stressed, yeah? Maybe the real question isn't how to avoid turning into our parents. More importantly, which parts of them are actually worth becoming. I mean, my dad's insistence on doing things the right way instead of the quick way used to drive me crazy. All of those extra steps seemed so unnecessary. But now I realize that his approach often meant I created quality work that lasted longer, whether it was painting a room or building a bookshelf. Also, my mom's habit of sending handwritten thank you notes seemed like an outdated etiquette that nobody cared about anymore. But I've come to understand it wasn't about following rules. It's about maintaining relationships and showing genuine gratitude, something that still actually matters in our digital age. Well, when I look at it objectively, many of the habits I inherited from my parents represent values that are worth preserving. In 2022, Johnson and Martinez categorized transmitted behaviors as either adaptive or maladaptive. Some of the adaptive transmissions include financial caution, like saving those plastic bags or turning off unnecessary lights, which Matthews and Fisher in 2023 found helped establish long-term resource management habits. Also, there's preparedness, like keeping emergency supplies or checking exits in public places, which Gottman and Silver in 2024 identified as safety-promoting behaviors that increase family resilience. And of course, self-care is disguised as rules. Thompson's 2019 research on emotional development showed that regular mealtimes and early bedtimes weren't punishments. They were about maintaining physical and emotional health. Now, don't we all wish we took that nap back in the day? Well, Gottman and Silver's 2024 study found that awareness of inherited behaviors correlates with increased ability to selectively modify undesired ones. So maybe turning into our parents isn't the worst fate after all. Perhaps it's less about becoming them and more about carrying forward the best parts of their wisdom while adapting it to our own lives. And as long as I don't start scolding our pets that they need to be on a diet or exercise, I think I can make peace with it. And that's a wrap. We'd love to hear your "oh no, I've become my parent" moments. Share them on your social media with the hashtag #OopsIAdulted. And remember, future people are watching, listening, and taking notes for their own content in 30 years. You gotta give them some good material. And until next time, we're reminding you to turn off the lights when you leave the room. Because seriously, you don't want to pay the light for the whole neighborhood.
Well, that's all the adulting we can handle for one episode. If you've made it this far without forgetting, if you've fed your pet or suddenly remembering that you forgot to water your plants, congratulations. You're better at this than we are. I mean, sure, I still put my shirt on backwards this morning, but I noticed before leaving the house. Growth. Thanks for joining our celebration of small victories and magnificent mishaps. If you enjoyed today's adventures in grown-up land, smash that like, follow and subscribe button like it's bubble wrap you found in a package, therapeutic and satisfying. Remember, adulting isn't about perfection. It's about collecting hilarious stories for your next dinner party. And tax deductions. It's definitely also about tax deductions. Until next time, keep your health high and your cholesterol low.